Are we okay, William, now? Okay, sorry about that, guys. So sorry. So, I want to start the talk tonight by asking you a simple question. Do you think that you know Jesus? Do you think that you actually know what happened back then, 2,000 years ago? Do you? Who's here can say, yes, I think I know exactly what happens? Huh? So,
I know what they told me.
That's a good, this is what we usually do. What do we know about Jesus? What they told us. Okay? And what if they told us it was not real? You see, for an example, the gospel and the Bible itself, it went to so many translations, and that's a problem, right? We don't really know. Jesus did not write anything. And then another thing that we have to realize, okay, that there is no one in the Middle East with the name Jesus. His name was Rocha, yeah. And then do you think there was somebody named Matthew that wrote, or Lucas? No, those are names that got translated, that they thought it made sense for us here. So we all know this, right? So what happens is we have to be very careful, because we seem to live our lives based on our belief system, okay? And what they told us that Jesus was, fact number one, we have no idea if that was really what he said. I'm not questioning here at all if Jesus existed or not, because I truly believe that he did, through my experience and my research, okay? But when you start to research the life of Jesus, and I'm talking about historically speaking, you will have a better understanding of his message. How many churches do you see today that they're thinking they're talking about Jesus? They're teaching people, they're using Jesus to express and to actually educate people towards racism and a lot of divisions, okay? Just because usually we don't go through history to try to understand what's going on with Jesus or what he meant when he says certain things, okay? So there is one passage that I'm going to mention to you, actually, that he mentioned twice. Do you guys know on the gospel when they mentioned the Samaritan? Do you guys know who the Samaritan was? Does anybody know? No? Samaritan. You know the parable, the Good Samaritan? Yeah. Do you guys know who was the Samaritan? No? Okay, that's a good thing. Well, at least you're gonna find out today. The Samaritans was, a race. They were considered Jews, but they hated each other. They had political problems, they had belief system problems, they had all types of problems. And they did not talk to each other. And the Jews, that's where Jesus was born, they hated the Samaritans so much that they used to spit on the floor when they saw a Samaritan. They just hated each other, okay? So when you guys listen, there's two different tribes that hate each other. So you have two passages. One is when Jesus was talking to the woman, and she was a Samaritan, okay? So not only Jesus was talking to a woman, because back then woman meant absolutely nothing, okay? But that woman was a Samaritan, and Jesus was talking to her. This will give you an idea of who this man was. This is what I want you to start to see, the real Jesus. And then the second time is that they mentioned the Samaritan is the parable of the Good Samaritan. You guys heard about that parable, right? Right, guys? Everybody was passing. There was a man that was in danger, in problem. He was sick. The one person watched and they didn't help. The second one didn't help. But then who helped? The Samaritan. Okay? So thinking about this. So when Jesus told this parable, okay, Jesus told this parable to the most powerful men back then in Jerusalem. Jesus told this parable to them. What did Jesus do? He said, the question was, okay, you tell me that I should love my neighbor, but who is my neighbor? And then Jesus answered with the Good Samaritan parable, which what Jesus did is he put the Samaritan as a hero of the story. See? If you didn't know who the Samaritans represented, you would never get what Jesus meant on that parable, true or false. Now that you think about this parable, I want you to rethink and go, wow. It's just like Jesus saying that the hero of the story is the person that you hate the most. That's the type of man that Jesus was. He was a rebellion. He was a good heart, a good spirit, no judgment. Okay? Not always what we learn about Jesus is what really was. Okay? So, I brought Jesus because I want you to bring Spiritism. So you realize that in order for you to truly understand what Jesus meant, you have to understand the culture back then, right? Right or wrong. You have to know, at least study a little bit, find out what kind of culture Jesus lived, what was the normal thing back then. With that, you have a better idea of who Jesus was. Okay, same thing with Spiritism, okay? So Spiritism is not that old. The Spirit's book was published in 1857. That was the first Spirit's books. And in order for us to understand what Allan Kardec came from, the culture of the spirits that was working with him, we have to study France back then. We need to have at least an idea of the culture Don't you agree? So we can understand what Allan Kardec was saying. Okay? So that's what I want to show you today. So let's go back. Since the 18th century, France had been undergoing intense transformation to the French Revolution. Remember your school years? Everybody study about the French Revolution. That was from 1789 to 1799, which overthrew the absolutely monarchy and promote the idea of liberty, equality, and fraternity. These three words is what the French Revolution was all about. After the revolution, there were periods of political instability, wars, regime change, and industrialization, which affect the social class and labor relation. This is what was going on, okay? Social movements and uprising. There were several uprisings and social movements through the 19th century, such as workers' revolt, peasant uprising, and strikes. The socialist and communist movements gained strength, especially after the revolution of 1848. Remember, Kardec lived through all this because the Spirit books was in 1857. The first contact that he had with the spirits through the dancing tables was around 1855, advocating for equal rights, better working condition, and the redistribution of wealth. So that's what was going on in France when Spiritism was born, okay? In 1848, a Majan uprising overthrew the monarchy of Louis Philippe and established the Second Republic. The revolt was driven by social discontent, with demands of agrarian reform, better conditions for workers, and greater popular participation. So you guys are having an idea of what was going on when Spiritism was born? That's the idea of France, okay, back then. The social revolution in France was a continuous process of struggles for right, equality, and justice, driven by economic change, urbanization, and political conflicts. It transformed society, creating new class and movements that sought a fair distribution of wealth and opportunity. Okay? So, when Allan Kardec brought Spiritism to the world, okay, he thought that by bringing a spiritual message, it will facilitate the social changes in society. We will see a society that was less selfish, with less pride. And the belief was that if we change ourselves, we will promote a society that was more just or equal or fraternity that will express to the society. So he said many times that the mission of Spiritism was to change the person, and that person will change society. Okay? But then we already know what happened to Spiritism in France right after Kardec died. There was a lot of fraud involving spiritual phenomenon that was due through his association to the Spirit Society of Paris. there was a lot of history that going on right after Kardec died, that what happened was that all the effort went to Brazil. And I was researching this, and the first contact with Spiritism that we had in Brazil was in 1860. 1860, 3 years after the Spiritist book was written. 3 years after, you could find in Brazil people that was doing like study groups to study Spiritism in Brazil. Now, the first spiritual center was in 1885. But in 1860, there were already people interested, okay? And just to let you know, Kardec died in 1869. So from 1855, he started to study Spiritism, to put everything together. He died in 1869, okay? So before he died, there was already a Brazilian Spiritism movement. Got it? Okay. So culture interferes in any beliefs, okay? So when Spiritism moved to Brazil, Brazil was a country that was what? Almost 100% what? Catholic. Okay? So why don't we see Brazil in 1857 when Spiritism was born? What Brazil was like? Okay. Period of the second reign, Dom Pedro II. Dom Pedro II was the emperor of Brazil during his long reign, which began in 1840 and lasted until 1889, way before Kardec was gone, disincarnate. Okay, let's put a perspective in this. Abolition of the slavery was still a reality. With the Eusébio de Queiroz law in 1850 prohibiting the slave trade, only the trade, but slavery itself persists until its final abolition in 1888. What do you guys see right there? Two different cultures, right? Okay, so how is the society in Brazil in 1857? Society was marked by great social inequality, with a plantation elite and sugar mill owners, as well as large slave population. Urbanization was still at its early stage, mainly concentrated in the capitals and producing righteousness, okay? Why this is important? Because when Spiritism got into Brazil, there is a completely different reality. One country was doing with slavery. The other was dealing with better working conditions for the worker, better society, fraternity, okay? But they had no idea. They just saw the Spirit's book. Oh, this must be wonderful. But they had no idea of the history behind the Spirit's books, the culture that the Spirit's book was born. When you look at the concerns of the French society back then, equality, fraternity, liberty, those were the concerns that the people back then from. And the people in Brazil, this didn't matter to them. They were happy by being slave owners, or they were sad by being in slavery. The social distance was huge between one class and another. So when Kardec wrote, "Without charity, there is no salvation," had one meaning in France, for the people in France, for the French people, because they were fighting for social justice. Now, when that same saying went to Brazil, it meant, you know what? That I have to give soup to the poor. I have to give whatever I have. I can give $1 or $10 to a person that is begging. This is how the Brazilian Spiritism interpret that without charity there is no salvation. But when you look, when Allan Kardec said, what is charity? Allan Kardec would say, benevolence for everybody. Towards everybody. Benevolence and forgiveness towards everybody. So without charity, there is no salvation to the French, and without charity, there is no salvation to the Brazilian. It's a completely different meaning, because the French people was looking to solutions for the social problems that they had back then. And the Brazilians were not. So that's why even in Spiritisms today, you don't see people that are actually concerned with the social injustice that is going on everywhere in the world. Okay? Now, if you believe in what Kardec was trying to bring us and what the Spirit was trying to bring us, what Jesus was trying to teach us, there was one simple question. Are we supposed to protect the immigrants in this country? If you really want to be in alignment with what Jesus was teaching by talking to the Samaritan, by showing to us, when he said, when you take care of, when you give it something to eat to the one that is needy, you're feeding me. Right? And when you see Allan Kardec talking about a better society, and I'm not only talking about immigrants' problem, I'm talking about social injustice also. We know there is a fact, it's a fact. We do know that if a black man commit the same crime as a white man in this country in the United States, they get completely different sentences. This is a fact. If you don't believe me, Google it. You'll find it. The white man usually get a minimal sentences. The black man usually get the maximum sentence. Why? Because we get judged still for the color of our skins, for the race that we have. And why is this happening? Why is this happening? Still, after all this year, social problem as a reflection of a spiritual progress is true. It's true. Inequality, violence, poverty, intolerance, these are symptoms of a world where it's still much selfishness, intolerance, and lack of love for others. The society that we live is only a reflection of who we are. And we need to start to think about this type of issue, just to reflect upon it, so we can do what Kardec asked us to do. By changing yourself, you will change society. You will create a better society for everybody to live. Not one or two or a race or two, the whole planet. And then another thing is that the connection between each person's inner self and society, if we want a fair world, we must first transform our consciousness. And we're not going to transform our consciousness if we don't reflect about those social issues, if we don't talk about it. Without judgment. That's the most important thing, without judgment. Oh, this person is right there on the street begging because he doesn't work, because he's an alcoholic, because he used drugs, because that. That's judgment. We need to solve those social problems. Solve the social problem. And judging, it's not going to do it. And one of the things that Jesus said many times in his gospel was about judging. Judging, it's a problem. We have to focus and talk about the solutions. What are we going to do for these people? What are we going to do for this society to be more fair? What is the position that I need to be in? That's what we need to talk about. I don't need to be a black person or a native person or an immigrant to realize that they get treated differently. I don't need to suffer from that to get empathy for them. I don't need to do that. I can have an empathy and realize and say, no, this is not right. Doesn't matter if I'm white or not. My mission is to create a better society, to work on the society's issue, because there is no such a thing as a spirituality when you don't care for the society that you live on it. I don't care how much meditation you do. I don't care how much yoga do you do. If we don't care for each other, if we don't include everybody, how is it possible in this world that a child die as in hunger? How is that possible? With all the food that we throw it away here, and there's still kids that die of hunger someplace. Maybe here. And what are we doing? I feel embarrassed. I truly do. It shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen. And it's happening. And we know what are we talking about? We're talking about the new earth. New Age spiritual people have said, oh, the new earth is coming. I'm sorry. What new earth is that? We're not taking care of each other as human beings. The responsibility of everyone, each one of us is part of the whole. We keep saying that. And it has the power to contribute to change. But we need to take the responsibility. Social injustice, it's our responsibility. Every single one of us is responsible. And together we can build a better world for everyone. For everyone. But like Kardec said, we need to change ourselves. We cannot put that responsibility in God's hands and not in the Spirit's hands. Or the Spirit will solve the social problem. No. No Spirit and no God will solve the social problems that we have, or any problems that we have. We must. Not them. And what we do when we have problems, oh, we're just gonna, give it to God. The spirits will, And we have sometimes such of, kindergarten belief systems. I saw the other day, this person was talking on TikTok, I guess, and then they were saying that, oh, don't you worry, a few months ago, and there was a problem between Iran and Iran and United States and Israel. Walter Problem said, oh, don't you worry, because the good spirits are not going to allow anyone to send any nuclear bombs or bombs anywhere. I was like, really? How come God never interfered? When there was thousands of Jews that were killed on the Second World War, there was thousands of people that were killed. There was thousands of people being killed in Israel and Gaza conflicts. God does not interfere on this. It's our jobs to do this. Okay? And we keep, another thing that Spiritists will keep talking about is this regenerations, new place, the world of regeneration. Okay? And the new world is coming, the world of regeneration is coming. And look what Kardec described as the world of regeneration. It's a phase in the world the moral evolution of humanity, where society will be organized in a way that guarantees the well-being of all with justice and fraternity. That's what the world of regeneration will be like. It's not the spirits that is going to come. No, we need to, it's when society will organize. So we're little further than that in Kardec's time back in France. Because Kardec was really optimistic. You know what he said before he died in Revista Espírita, I don't know, Spirits magazine? He said that, oh, the times is coming. We already seeing the changes. Of course he did. He was right there in France, where people were fighting for social justice, where people were fighting for each other, when they were trying to hold hands as a community and go through pain together and go through joy together. because I do care about you, and you do care about me. And it's such a comfort feeling. When we are all one, we are whole with the universe. The ego is the one that creates the illusion of separation. We all know that we are all one. Doesn't matter if we are here on this 3D world, or if we are on the 4D world, the 5th world, the 6th world, the 7th dimension. Doesn't matter. We know that life goes on. We know that. We can feel that. And there is no such a thing as a distance. There is no such a thing as time. This is how we perceive life. But if we'd open our heart to this new world, it's not going to come to us. We're going to build it. We're going to build it together by holding each other's hands. Let's try to compete less. Let's try not to be better or worse than anybody. Let's try to live life in fraternity. Because it looks like we did not understand Jesus. We didn't. And we did not understand the Spiritism either. The only thing that is left for us to do is to reflect upon our lives today, ask a very tough question, and the question is, do I care? Because if you don't care, it's okay. It really is. As long as your consciousness that you know that you don't care. You can be conscious that you don't care for anybody else but yourself and your family or whatever. But when you change your perception a little bit and realize that you are a universal being, universal, let's put it that way, cosmos being. There is so much more than this body and this dimension that you can ever imagine. But the only way to reach all this is together, as one. As humanity. And this belief system is causing a lot of harm to us. There was a lot of depression, there was a lot of anxiety, there was a lot of pain, there was a lot of suffering because of division. The cause of most pain that we go through is division. I'm you, you are me, you that, I'm here, look at my life, you look at it for your life. That's the triple life that we create for ourselves. And we can do so much better than that. because we can't be so much than what are we being right now. All the time that somebody comes to the center and it's asking for any kind of help, they forget how powerful they are, and they put everything in other people's hands. That's what we do. That's okay, we're here in a community. But when you ask, don't believe that you are not capable of doing whatever is that you're asking. We get so many requests on letters. You know, oh, I wish I had news from my grandpa, from my dad that passed away. We have so many of these requests. And we'll try to help. We really try, but not without telling the people that you don't need anybody else to communicate with your loved ones. Because they are dead. They are there for you, ready to communicate with them. It's so strong that if you close your eyes for a second, you feel the presence, right? Because time and distance, it's only an illusion that we create for ourselves. So if you really want to be in touch with your loved one, you just got to take a deep breath, observe your heart, have the will to do it, to feel the presence. In a few minutes you are in tears. That's how strong it is. Because the separation that we create is not real, it's only an illusion. And all this division, I don't care if it's a division by dimension, if it's a division by race, or if it's a division by capability, every division that we create are very harmful for ourselves. Let's be at least consciousness of that. It creates pain, suffering, anxiety, depression, fear. Okay? When you see ourselves as a whole, we're going to give the society the importance that society deserves. Because we feel as whole with the whole universe, and everybody's it's a very important piece. Not only myself, not only my loved ones, everybody's loved ones are important. Everybody's moms are important. Everybody's dads are important. Everybody's sisters are important. Everybody's kids are important. Imagine if we can create a world like that. If we can create a society like that. Okay, thank you so much.